Could technology get smaller in 2021 and not bigger? That's going to be the topic of today's video. Now, everyone assumes that technology will get bigger and bigger. However, I'm going to make a counterintuitive guess, and that's all it is, a guess. I think there's going to be a brief period, it could be this year, it could be next year, where people want to switch off a bit from technology. Now, not everyone, but some people. So we're going to see, I think, an increase in the number of people wanting to go back into the office briefly, an increase in the number of people wanting to go to face-to-face events, like could be Chamber of Commerce events, could be Rotary Club, it could be sporting events, whatever it is, and a decrease in some people doing at least certain types of activity online. However, I don't think it's going to last. I think the reason why it could happen is that people have almost been zoomed out, to kind of give an expression. In other words, people are using too much technology at the moment and it came too fast, even though we are gradually using more technology down the years. But let's actually cast our minds back to those who are kind of old enough to remember the early to mid 2000s. Now, at that time, I know it seems incredible to think about it now, but technology wasn't a big part of our lives. In the 1990s, people were going crazy about the internet, that valuations were sky high and so on. But it was mainly about the future. Most people were not using the internet on a daily basis. Now, in the mid 2000s, and especially the early 2000s, the internet still wasn't that big a part of our lives, believe it or not, for some of the younger listeners. I can remember as recently as say 2005, 2006, people were kind of dipping their toes into eBay and websites like that, but people weren't using the internet that much, and we were just going towards broadband internet, the more high-speed internet at that time. Many people still had slow internet. Even as recently as 2010, 20% of the British population still had the slow internet speed. So really from about 2010 until 2020, even before the pandemic, there was a huge rise in internet penetration. And Jeff Bezos did a TED talk. I think it was about 2005, something like that. You can look for it on YouTube. I forgot the name of the TED talk, but I think he's only done one, where he basically argued to the audience that this was just the first stage of the internet. Yes, it went up and then it seemed to go down in the early 2000s. Tech valuations were low, they were depressed. From 2000 until 2005, the internet was still kind of rising a little bit, but it didn't really seem to be making that much of an impact in our lives. Many people, even as recently as 2005 or even 2006, 2007, thought the internet and technology would not be an absolute game changer. That yes, it could get a bit bigger, but essentially most business will still be in person, especially high trust business, and people would still prefer to go to the shops to buy clothes because they could actually touch it, they could feel it, and all this kind of thing. But of course, Bezos long term was proven absolutely right, that it wasn't a one-way trend. It wasn't every month there was an exponential rise in people using online services, but it got bigger and bigger. And from 2010 until the pandemic, it rose to even including high trust services as well. So legal services, financial services, all done online, hiring done online. I mean, even before the pandemic, people were using Upwork.com, Freelancer.com, other websites to hire people they've never met, and so on and so forth. Having said that, because we have seen such an incredible rise in internet and technology use since the start of the pandemic, and that rise is coming after 10 years or more of incredible growth in technology, we might have a bit of nostalgia for those kind of old school kind of things, like going to a networking event, having a few drinks with people at the networking event. But I think it's going to kind of come and go. I'm not saying 100% of all industries are eventually going to go online. There will be a time and a place for our ways of doing business. Look at the letter. We do still occasionally send physical letters. They haven't died out despite the emails. I'm not saying face-to-face is going to completely die out and everything is going to move online. But I personally think there could be a brief period this year or next year, once the pandemic is better, where people really like meeting people in person again. But over time, we kind of realize why we didn't go to those events in the first place. It reminds me, I remember after lockdown ended, when I was actually in Europe at one stage, I couldn't wait to go to places like restaurants or whatever, I went a lot. But then after lockdown had ended for a while, I just did it in a normal way, and I still did delivery more often and so on. So I highly suspect that in the summer we are going to see this rise in people who can't wait to do things like go to bars, go to restaurants, travel, all those face-to-face things, and they might even do it in excessive quantities to begin with. And internet traffic, believe it or not, might briefly go down, but I don't think it's going to last.